I used to think that freedom meant having no master. I grew up in a world that told me autonomy was the highest form of existence, that I was the captain of my ship, the architect of my destiny. By the age of 32, I had checked every box that was supposed to make a woman happy. I was a corporate lawyer in Chicago, driving a luxury car, living in a high-rise apartment that overlooked the city lights. I had a busy social life, a closet full of designer clothes, and a passport stamped with vacations to exotic places. But when the lights went out and the silence of my apartment set in, I felt a hollowing ache in my chest that no promotion or purchase could fill. It wasn't sadness exactly, it was weightlessness. I felt like an astronaut whose tether had snapped, drifting further and further into a dark, cold void. I had no anchor, I had no centre. My journey didn't begin with a debate or a book, it began with a tragedy. My mother, the only person who truly knew me, passed away suddenly from an aneurysm. One moment she was laughing on the phone with me, the next she was gone. The illusion of control I had built my life around shattered instantly. I realised then that I wasn't the captain of anything. I couldn't stop death. I couldn't bargain with time. In the aftermath of the funeral, my grief turned into a bitter anger. I was angry at the universe, at the randomness of existence. To escape the suffocating condolences of friends who didn't understand, I booked a flight to Turkey. I didn't go for religion. I went because I wanted to be somewhere loud, chaotic, and completely different from my sterile life in Chicago. One afternoon in Istanbul, I found myself sitting on a bench near the Blue Mosque. I was exhausted, nursing a migraine, watching tourists snap selfies. Then the Adhan, the call to prayer, started. I had heard it before in movies, usually framed as something ominous or foreign. But sitting there, with the grief still raw in my throat, the sound washed over me differently. It was hauntingly beautiful. It didn't sound like a command, it sounded like a cry of longing. Hayya, ala-s-Salah, Hayya, ala-l-Falah, come to prayer, come to success. I watched as old men hobbled toward the mosque. I watched shopkeepers leave their merchandise unattended. I watched young men stop laughing and wash their faces at the fountains. There was a discipline there, but more than that, there was a sudden collective peace. For a few minutes, the chaos of the world stopped and everyone turned towards something greater than themselves. I felt a pang of jealousy. I wanted that. I wanted to bow down to something and let go of the burden of being my own god. I returned to Chicago, but the city felt grayer than before. I couldn't shake the memory of that call. Curiosity got the better of me. I went to a bookstore and bought a copy of the Quran, an English translation. I hid it in my bag, embarrassed, as if I were smuggling contraband. I told myself I was just reading it for cultural literacy. I opened it expecting to find angry tirades or confusing mythology. Instead, I found the story of Joseph Yusuf. I read. He said, I only complain of my suffering and my grief to Allah, and I know from Allah that which you do not know. I stopped breathing for a moment. I only complain of my suffering to Allah. In my world, we complained to therapists, to bartenders, to friends who didn't really listen. We broadcasted our pain on social media, seeking validation. But here was a proposition. Take your broken heart and place it directly before the creator of the heart. I kept reading. I read about the spider's web being the frailest of houses. I read about the embryo in the womb. But what struck me most was the constant reminder of mercy. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the most gracious, the most merciful. I had grown up thinking of God as a distant, angry judge or a vague energy. The Quran described a God who was closer to me than my jugular vein, a God who knew the leaf that falls from the tree and the secret whispers of my soul. For 6 months I fought it. I fought it hard. I loved my lifestyle. I loved my wine with dinner. I loved my wardrobe. I was terrified of what my colleagues would say. A Muslim? You. The stereotypes played in my head on a loop. Oppression, backwardness, violence. But the Quran was like a mirror I couldn't look away from. It showed me my own arrogance. It asked questions I couldn't answer. So where are you going? At-Takwir 26. One rainy Tuesday night, I hit my breaking point. I was sitting on my expensive beige rug, surrounded by legal briefs, feeling that same crushing loneliness I had felt since my mother died. I looked at the ceiling and whispered, if you are there, if you are real, you have to help me. I can't carry this anymore. I didn't know how to pray. I just knew that Muslims put their heads on the ground. It seemed like such a humiliating posture to my Western ego, to lower your face, the most dignified part of you, to the dust. I pushed the coffee table aside. I got down on my knees, and then I put my forehead on the carpet. The moment my head touched the floor, the dam broke. I sobbed. I didn't cry. I wept from the depths of my stomach. It was as if all the pressure I had been holding for 32 years, the pressure to be perfect, to be strong, to be in control, flowed out of me and into the ground. In that posture of submission, I found the freedom I had been looking for. I realized that I was a servant, and there is dignity in being a servant of the King of Kings. I wasn't alone. I was held. I stayed on the floor for 20 minutes. When I sat up, the room looked the same, but the world had changed. I knew I couldn't go back. 2 days later, I drove to a small mosque on the outskirts of the city. I sat in my car for an hour, terrified. What if they judged me? What if I didn't belong? I finally walked in. It was simple inside, smelling of musk and silence. A woman approached me. She didn't look oppressed. She had a radiant smile and eyes that looked like they had seen peace. She didn't ask me who I was or what I wanted. She just smiled and said, "Welcome, sister." I told her, "I want to become Muslim." She didn't clap or make a scene. She just took my hand. Her hand was warm. She led me to the imam. Sitting there, repeating the words felt like signing the most important contract of my life, but one where I gained everything and lost nothing of value. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. As the words left my tongue, I felt a physical sensation, like cold water washing over a fever. It was a spiritual shower. The heaviness of my past sins, my arrogance, my confusion, it all evaporated. I felt clean. I felt born again truly. That was 4 years ago. I won't lie and tell you that everything became easy. I lost friends. My father stopped talking to me for a year. He thought I had joined a cult. I had to relearn how to dress, how to eat, how to structure my day. Wearing the hijab was a battle. Walking into a courtroom with a scarf on my head took more courage than I thought I possessed. But I would lose it all again to keep what I have now. I wake up for Fajr prayer when the world is dark and silent, and I stand before my Lord. That hollowness in my chest is gone. It has been filled with light. I know why I am here. I know where I am going. I know that my mother's death wasn't a random error, but a decree from the All-Wise. I used to think Islam was a cage. I didn't realize I was the one in the cage of my own desires and society's expectations. Submission to Allah was the key that opened the door. I am no longer the captain of a ship drifting in the dark. I am a passenger on a vessel guided by the one who created the oceans, and for the first time in my life, I am at peace with the waves.